food, lifestyle, and regulatory capture. While subscriptions were being perfected in clinics, demand was being built in kitchens, cafeterias, and corner stores. You can't sell lifelong management without lifelong conditions. And conditions don't just appear. They're nudged into being by what we eat, how we move, how we sleep, and what our rules reward. Start with sugar. In the mid-20th century, industry money flowed into academic debates over what truly fueled heart disease and metabolic breakdown. Funding steered attention toward saturated fat and away from refined carbohydrates. That pivot didn't just shape a few papers, it shifted national guidelines. Low fat became the banner. Food companies answered with low-fat products that were high in sugar and refined starches. Snack bars, yogurts, cereals, and sauces wore health halos while spiking insulin and training palates for sweet. Supermarket aisles filled with claims: heart-healthy, cholesterol-free, light. The result? People ate more often, craved more, and rode daily blood sugar roller coasters that set the stage for weight gain, fatty liver, and type 2 diabetes. Meanwhile, processed foods industrialized bliss. Food scientists tuned salt, sugar, and fat to bliss points that maximized desire without tipping into satiety. Portion sizes crept upward, plates at chain restaurants became platters. Cheap commodity inputs, corn, soy, wheat, were transformed into endless variations of the same shelf-stable calories. A frozen-in tray could sit for months and still taste engineered fresh after 5 microwave beep. The household budget stretched, but bodies adapted in ways that clinic dashboards would later capture as elevated A1CS, triglycerides, and blood pressure. Built environments played their part. Post-war development patterns favored cars over feet. Sidewalks disappeared, commutes lengthened. Big box stores replaced corner grocers, school recess shrank, sleep eroded under shift work, screens, and stress. Cortisol stayed high. Even people who wanted to move struggled to wedge it in between traffic, 2 jobs, and caregiving. The default day was sedentary by design, not by defect of will. Labels tried to talk both sides of the mouth. On one line, they listed grams and percentages. On the front, they flashed whole grain, natural, low fat, or zero trans fat, even when the serving size was an illusion and the metabolic hit was heavy. Energy drink sounded sporty, not like liquid candy. Breakfast biscuit sounded British, not a cookie. Add a cartoon character, a tie-in toy, and a back-to-school promotion, and you've built a habit with a shelf life of years. Behind the shelves, the rulemakers and the regulated often shared resumes. Advisory panels that wrote nutrition guidance included experts with industry research ties. Agency heads left for board seats. Board members arrived to sit on panels. It wasn't always corrupt, it was normalized. When conflicts were disclosed, the machine still moved, because replacing an expert bench is hard and cheap calories have powerful lobby. The revolving door turned quietly, and definitions shifted by inches that mattered. How to count sugar, what qualifies as fiber, when natural flavors, obscure formulations, how big a serving really is. Marketing filled gaps left by policy. Direct-to-consumer advertising for drugs named the consequences: heartburn, indigestion, cholesterol, joint pain, while food advertising named the pleasures that led there. One screen promised comfort with whipped cream peaks, the next promised relief with a once-daily pill. The whole week became an elegant duet: induce, then reduce, provoke, then palliate. By Friday, shoppers reached for both, the family pack and the pharmacy bag. When confusion reigned, industries prospered. A micro-story: a mother stands in a fluorescent-lit aisle at 9 at night, reading 2 boxes. One says made with whole grains, the other low-fat. She chooses both, believing variety covers bases. 2 years later, her doctor explains pre-diabetes, prints a handout, and starts metformin. Nobody lied to her explicitly. The structure simply rewarded products and messages that kept her hungry and tired. As chronic conditions surged, pricing power downstream increased. Every new diabetic meant a long horizon of monitoring strips, sensors, medications, and visits. Every hypertensive meant decades of refills. Demand wasn't a wave that crashed, it was a tide that kept rising. And when insurers balked at costs, another part of the system had leverage. Point to personal responsibility, point to guidelines, point to evidence, and keep formularies stable. Regulatory capture didn't have to be dramatic. It looked like comment periods where trade groups submitted binders. It looked like standards that were hard for small producers to meet but easy for conglomerates. It looked like pilot programs that favored vendors with existing contracts. Even well-meaning officials faced asymmetric information. Companies arrived with teams, data, and draft language. Public health advocates arrived with passion and a few staffers. The resulting rules often tilted toward what was measurable for manufacturers and manageable for agencies, not what was metabolically sound for families. Meanwhile, physician training rarely covered nutrition beyond a few lectures. Counseling time was scarce. Food deserts and food swamps complicated every eat better message. The easiest calories remained the worst deal for long-term health, and every month that a patient's markers stayed just above target was another month the subscription logic could do its work: dispense, remind, refill, repeat. Here's the hinge: none of this required a smoky back room. It required incentives lining up across sectors: food, advertising, urban planning, and healthcare, so demand creation and disease management reinforced each other. The more confused the label, the more likely the sale. The more exhausted the patient, the more likely the prescription. And once the prescription started, the system had 100 ways to keep it going. With demand engineered and normalized, the next move was to lock in price and exclusivity. Because a subscription model isn't just about how many people need the gate, it's about how high you can set the toll and how long you can bar competitors from building another entrant. Patents, prices, and the orphan playbook. With demand normalized, the game shifted to toll setting and gatekeeping. Pricing power lives in exclusivity, and exclusivity lives in patents, not just one patent, an orchard of them. A single active ingredient can sit under a canopy of secondary claims: new dosing schedules, novel delivery devices, crystalline forms, manufacturing tweaks, even pen colors that tie to device patents. Each branch buys time. Each month of time is measured in revenue targets, not days on a calendar. Take evergreening in its pure form. A blockbuster reaches the edge of its basic patent. Suddenly, filings appear for a citrate salt here, a buffered formulation there, a prefilled injector with a proprietary thread, a no-needle sensation claim based on a bevel change. Competitors clear the molecule, but they still meet a thicket. Litigation follows. Settlements set launch dates years out. On paper, the science advanced. In the pharmacy, the box on the shelf barely changed, while list prices rose and discounts hid in shadows. Sponsors call this life cycle management. Health plans call it budget pressure. Patients call it a New Year's deductible that wipes a checking account in one afternoon. Meanwhile, internal teams celebrate defensive wins because they mean another quarter of premium pricing. A micro story. A hospital pharmacist switches a patient from a familiar injector to a new and improved pen. The dose is identical. The copay doubles. The improvement: a dial that clicks more softly and a patent that clicks for longer. Orphan drug policy adds a different engine. In the 1980s, lawmakers wanted to help patients with rare diseases that the market ignored. They created the Orphan Drug Act with incentives: 7 years of exclusivity, tax credits, fee waivers, and sometimes priority review. For true orphans, it worked. Treatments appeared where none existed. But companies learned a second move: define smaller and smaller subgroups, carve indications into niches, and stack exclusivity. A medicine for a few thousand people can carry six-figure annual prices because there's no substitute and insurers can't say no without headlines. Over time, a drug can accrete multiple orphan protections across slices of a broader condition. Each slice a lock on a slightly different door. Biologics amplified the moat. Unlike small molecules, which generics can copy atom for atom once patents expire, biologics are complex proteins made in living cells. Copying them creates biosimilars, not generics, and regulators require proof of no clinically meaningful difference. Then there's an extra bar: interchangeability for automatic pharmacy substitution. Each step adds cost, time, and uncertainty. Layer on device patents around pens and pumps, add trademarked brand equity, and the originator keeps a wide lane for years after nominal exclusivity ends. The list price can climb while net price dances behind rebate curtains. Shoppers see only what leaks through. Enter pharmacy benefit managers, the brokers of this market, often owned by the same insurers that pay the bills. They negotiate rebates, design formularies, and control who gets prime shelf space in the electronic prescribing window. Manufacturers pay to be preferred. Plans tout savings off inflated list prices. The spread, what's paid, what's rebated, what's kept, confuses everyone except the spreadsheets that reconcile it. Doctors see tiers and prior authorization. Patients see coupons that magically neutralize copays for the preferred brand, while a clinically similar competitor sits 2 tiers higher with bureaucratic tripwires. The sickest patients become bargaining chips in rebate poker games they never chose to play. Watch the insulin market to see all these forces converge. The core molecule is old, but device patents, incremental analog tweaks, and a rebate war kept list prices climbing for years, while net prices were hidden in contracts the patient never sees. Biosimilars trickled in slowly. Interchangeability took time. Plans preferred products that fed the rebate machine. Patients who couldn't navigate assistance programs rationed doses, then showed up in emergency rooms with ketoacidosis. Congress hauled executives into hearings. Prices budged in public while contracts hummed in private. The subscription model didn't blink. It just adjusted copay cards and replenishment schedules. The United States stands out globally because other countries set reference prices, bargain nationally, or refuse drugs that don't meet cost-effectiveness thresholds. Here, fragmented payers, protected exclusivities, and legal firepower sustain higher list prices and intricate rebate flows. Manufacturers argue that those margins fund research and development. Critics point to shareholder returns, buybacks, and marketing budgets that dwarf trial costs for many indications. Both can be true in pieces. What matters to a family at the counter is the number on the receipt and whether the cheaper clinical option was ever offered. Then come the specialty plays. A gene therapy launches at $1 million per dose. To make it palatable, payers and manufacturers discuss annuity payments tied to outcomes. If the effect wanes, payments pause. If it holds, the stream continues. It sounds like accountability, and sometimes it is. It also wraps cures in financial products that echo the very subscription logic the therapy threatened. If a one-and-done acts like a bond on a balance sheet, the system has converted a cure into a managed cash flow. Legal strategies knit the perimeter. Patent term extensions claim regulatory delay. Citizen petitions to the Food and Drug Administration slow competitor approvals with safety concerns that read like stall tactics. Authorized generics appear to undercut true generics at launch, splitting the market and softening price drops. Pay-for-delay settlements, carefully structured to skirt antitrust heat, push competition back a fiscal year or 3. Every maneuver buys time, and time buys revenue. Micro-story lands the point. A rheumatology patient does well on a biologic whose exclusivity just lapsed. A biosimilar arrives 20% cheaper. The plan keeps the originator preferred because the rebate is richer, making the net price to the plan lower than the biosimilar sticker. At the counter, the patient's copay is based on list price, not net. She pays more to stay on the drug the plan prefers for reasons she'll never see. Everyone says value, but no one means the same thing. This is the orphan playbook and its cousins at work. Stack protections, shape competition, price to the brink of outrage without tipping over, and route savings through channels the patient can't audit. It doesn't require malice. It requires mastery of rules written to reward innovation and a tolerance for side effects measured in household budgets. The cure isn't absent. It's often just fenced, financed, and when necessary, fractioned into niches that keep the toll booth staffed. The hospital insurance money loop. While patents set tolls, the delivery system learned to print tickets. Hospitals and insurers built a loop where volume, codes, and contracts turned sickness into steady revenue, no matter who technically paid the bill. Start with fee-for-service, the backbone of the loop. Every service has a code. Every code has a price. More codes mean more revenue. A clinic visit becomes 3 codes when you add a test and a minor procedure. A hospital stay becomes a forest of line items, pharmacy, imaging, supplies, therapy minutes. Nobody needs malice to inflate, they just need a target. Managers track relative value units. Clinicians feel the nudge to do just one more reimbursable step. Preventing problems pays once. Managing problems pays again and again. Diagnosis-related groups tried to tame this by bundling inpatient stays into flat payments keyed to diagnoses. In theory, DRGs reward efficiency. In practice, they incentivize coding acuity up. If a pneumonia case qualifies as with complications, the payment rises. Documentation specialists join care teams to capture severity. The care may be unchanged. The chart evolves so the bill does not leave money on the table. Meanwhile, the charge master, the sticker price list nobody pays, bloats into a fiction that still matters. Discounts are negotiated off those fictions, and patients out of network or with high deductibles can be charged against numbers set to be discounted, not lived with. Nonprofit hospitals grew by absorbing physician practices. The pitch to independent doctors was simple: sell your practice, get a salary, lose the headaches. The hospital gains downstream referrals, facility fees, and control of scheduling. A blood draw that used to happen in a small office now occurs in a hospital outpatient department, which can legally add a facility fee. Same nurse, same needle, new code, bigger bill. The patient pays more for geography. The system books growth without doing more medicine. Surprise billing exposed one seam in the loop. A patient books a surgery at an in-network hospital, believes they are covered, and then receives a bill from an out-of-network anesthesiologist group they never met before the mask. Laws narrowed this practice for many settings, but facility fee loopholes and carve-outs remain. Hospital-based clinics can charge like hospitals even when they look like offices. Site of service becomes destiny for a bill. Vertical integration tightened the loop further. Insurers bought pharmacy benefit managers and clinics. PBMs acquired specialty pharmacies. Health systems launched insurance products. Data platforms stitched it together. The CVS Aetna merger became the emblem. The insurer, PBM, retail pharmacies, and clinics under one roof. In one stack, a patient's premium, clinic visit, prescription, and refill all travel inside related entity. Claims data predict risk, care managers nudge behavior, formularies steer drugs, owned pharmacies capture margins. A closed loop can coordinate care. It can also coordinate capture. Watch a micro-story unfold. A woman visits a hospital-owned primary care clinic for routine follow-up. The clinician orders 2 labs and a screening electrocardiogram. The hospital bills a facility fee for the visit, a professional fee for the clinician, a technical fee for the electrocardiogram, and separate line items for laboratory processing, all at hospital outpatient rates. Her plan applies the deductible to each. The same care in an independent office would have been a fraction. She calls the billing office. They explain it's standard. She pays on a plan with interest. Meanwhile, outcomes rarely drive dollars. A cardiology group can earn more by placing stents and interpreting echocardiograms than by sitting with patients to redesign meals, sleep, and stress patterns. A pulmonology clinic earns more by managing inhalers and testing lung function than by coordinating mold remediation and workplace accommodations. Even when clinicians want to do the slow work, the schedule template and revenue models say otherwise. Hospitals call themselves community anchors, and many are. But the accounting treats community benefit as a line to justify tax exemption, not a mandate to reduce bills or expand unprofitable services. Charity care exists, then gets offset by inflated list prices and discounts. Expansion strategies focus on service lines with favorable margins: orthopedics, cardiology, oncology. Pediatrics and mental health lag because reimbursements are thin. New towers rise with glass and light. The emergency department waits fill with people who can't find a primary care appointment that fits their job. Insurers market narrow networks as cost control. They steer to preferred hospitals, negotiate lower rates, and still raise premiums because underlying prices and utilization keep climbing. They deny or delay high-cost items to protect margins, approve lower-cost alternatives, and tout care management. Patients experience it as phone trees, prior authorizations, and a sense that someone invisible is rationing with a spreadsheet. Clinicians experience it as faxes, portal messages, and hours on hold. Data glue it all together. Risk scores predict who will cost more. Care pathways standardize responses. Gaps in care, alerts prompt colonoscopies, mammograms, and medication refills. Some essential, some marginal, all measurable. Plans earn quality bonuses when metrics move. Hospitals earn bonuses when readmissions fall within windows. Clinicians earn bonuses when patients meet adherence targets. Few bonuses reward deprescribing or remission. The loop favors what it can tally and bill. There are bright spots. Bundled payments for joint replacements that reward fewer complications, primary care capitation that pays for messages and group visits, hospital-at-home programs that reduce infections. But when these models threaten high-margin service lines or cut into fee-for-service volume, they hit friction. Pilots stay pilots. Scale weight. Final micro-story closes the circuit. A diabetic man on multiple medications is flagged by his insurer's data team. He receives a call offering a pharmacist consultation through an insurer-owned clinic. The pharmacist optimizes his regimen using the plan's preferred drugs. Adherence rises. The PBM collects rebates. The insurer reports improved quality scores. The man's A1C improves modestly. His premiums rise next year. Everyone in the loop met their metric. Nobody got erasing to help him leave the loop, marginalizing non-patent medicine. While the hospital insurance loop perfected billing, another project worked in the background: clear the lane by narrowing what counts as medicine. After the education cull, alternatives didn't vanish overnight. They were pushed to the edges, redefined, reclassified, and regulated into quiet. Start with the immediate post-Flexner fallout. Homeopathic and eclectic colleges lost legitimacy, and with it, applicants and donors. States aligned licensure with the new curriculum, so graduates from surviving alternative schools met boards that wouldn't recognize their hours or clinics. Commercial became a scarlet letter. Without hospital affiliations, these colleges couldn't offer sanctioned clerkships. Without clerkships, they couldn't place students. Without placement, fundraising dried up. Laboratories and beds were the new currency. If you couldn't buy them, you couldn't speak. Osteopathy and chiropractic faced a different path: survive by compromise. Osteopathic schools shifted toward biomedical curricula, added pharmacology, and sought hospital ties. Over decades, osteopaths won prescribing rights and hospital privileges in many states, converging with mainstream practice so thoroughly that the public often couldn't tell the difference. The price of entry was alignment: fewer unique modalities, more shared codes. Chiropractic held to spinal manipulation and musculoskeletal care, but fought perpetual scope battles. States carved narrow lanes, insurers codified maintenance care not covered. Chiropractors learned to navigate pre-authorizations and visit caps that kept them corrective, not comprehensive. Herbalism drifted from medicine into the category of food. In the United States, supplements don't require pre-market approval the way drugs do, which sounds like freedom until you follow the consequences. You can sell a capsule, but you can't claim it treats a disease without triggering drug rules you can't afford. Labels hedge with supports and promotes. Efficacy language is policed. Quality varies. Serious research funding is scarce because there's no patent fence to justify the outlay. A clinic can suggest an herb. A prescriber can't easily bill for the coaching it requires. The result is a parallel market, lively but disconnected from the systems that define standard of care. Then came prosecutions and publicity campaigns. Mail fraud statutes and advertising rules targeted claims that strayed into disease treatment. Some cases protected the public from real harm, many chilled speech across the board. Newspapers ran quack columns naming bad actors alongside anyone outside the pharmacologic mainstream. Professional societies issued position statements that dismissed entire categories, homeopathy most of all, as inherently non-evidence-based, full stop. The nuance where an herb worked, where it didn't, rarely made it past editorial cuts. In clinics, clinicians learned a safer reflex: avoid recommending anything that could be construed as stepping outside guidelines, because a complaint, even a frivolous one, costs hours and reputation. Insurance design did the quietest damage. Benefits favored procedures, prescriptions, and facility-based services. Acupuncture might be covered with tight limits. Nutrition counseling often required a diabetes or kidney disease diagnosis. Health coaching sat outside the fee schedule. Higher copays and exclusions nudged patients away from time-intensive, non-patent care. A person could get a proton pump inhibitor with a small copay the day they asked, but paying out of pocket for a few months of reflux coaching felt extravagant. Even when patients wanted alternatives, the benefit design ran interference. As universities embraced tech transfer, randomized controlled trials became the single passport. They are powerful tools, but they're expensive and tailored to isolated interventions. One molecule, one dose, one outcome window. Whole plant therapies, combined lifestyle protocols, or individualized regimens struggle in that frame. Without sponsor funding, few trials launch. Without trials, guidelines won't recommend. Without recommendations, insurers won't cover. Without coverage, clinics don't adopt. The circle closes. The lack of evidence isn't always lack of effect. It's often lack of a business case to generate the evidence at the required scale. Micro-stories make the edges visible. A family doctor in a rural county watches her patients cycle through reflux meds. She pilots a food-first protocol, late meal curfews, trigger mapping, weight shifts, sleep elevation. Refill rates fall, symptom diaries improve. She asks the local hospital to support a group visit program. The answer: no reimbursement codes that cover the time, no luck. She keeps doing it off the side of her desk. Her quality dashboards don't capture fewer refills as success. They flag gaps when patients don't hit adherence targets. Another, a cancer center dietitian, wants to test a botanical blend alongside standard care for nausea. The IRB likes the safety monitoring. The grants office asks about intellectual property. There is none. A manufacturer of a new antiemetic offers funding for a comparative trial against an older drug, not food-based options. The center needs overhead. The dietitian's project returns to a file folder that gets heavier each year. Public perception hardened through repetition. Late-night talk shows mocked crystals and cleanses, and some deserved it. But the ridicule splashed beyond fringe practices onto credible non-pharmacologic care. Alternative became a single bucket. Patients learned to lower their voices when asking about herbs. Clinicians learned to answer with a printed handout on drug interactions and a polite pivot back to standard regimen. Meanwhile, professional identity narrowed. Young clinicians trained in systems where success meant guideline adherence and trial literacy. Few curricula taught detailed nutrition, sleep physiology, or stress interventions in ways that matched the rigor of pharmacology. Those who wanted that skill set sought it after hours, paying out of pocket for courses the system didn't value. When they tried to bill for the work, codes didn't fit. When they asked for time, schedules didn't budge. The net effect wasn't a ban, it was a margin. Alternatives survived, but as boutiques or side gigs, often paid for in cash by people with time and means. The patients who most needed low-cost, root-cause care, those juggling multiple jobs, food deserts, and chronic stress, met a benefit design that pushed pills and procedures first. If they asked for different, they hit a wall of not covered and no code. By erasing rivals through standards, benefits, and culture rather than explicit prohibition, the system kept its cohesion. It could claim openness, show us the evidence, while setting the price of admission at a level only patent-backed products could pay. And with rivals muted, the next gatekeeper gained even more power, the trial and publication apparatus that decides what counts as knowing. Evidence, trials, and the publication bottleneck. With rivals muted, one gate became decisive, the clinical trial. On paper, the randomized controlled trial is medicine's truth machine. In practice, it's a fortress with a covered charge most therapies can't pay. The rule is simple. The more isolated the intervention and the tighter the endpoint, the cheaper the path to a clean result. A standardized pill fits. A multi-component protocol, a botanical blend, or a food pattern does not. Stakes first. What crosses this gate writes guidelines, controls formularies, and earns coverage. If a therapy never reaches a pivotal trial, it barely exists in the eyes of payers and professional societies. Patients feel the absence as silence in exam rooms. Clinicians feel it as liability if they stray from published pathways. And because trial costs run into the tens or hundreds of millions, funders choose assets they can protect: patents, exclusivities, brand. Evidence begins to rhyme with ownership. Now the action. Trial design is where advantage hides in plain sight. Endpoints decide winners. Pick a surrogate marker that moves quickly: cholesterol, A1C, tumor size, and you can post results in months. Hard outcomes, heart attacks, strokes, mortality, take years and thousands of participants. Comparators matter too. Test your new drug against placebo instead of the best generic, and you maximize the chance of a headline. Run the trial in populations most likely to respond, and the effect size swells. Shorten the window, and adverse events may not have time to surface. None of this breaks rules. It bends them toward a sponsor's goal, statistical significance that sells. Meanwhile, the price tag excludes challengers. A university team that wants to test a whole food intervention across clinics needs kitchens, coaches, months of follow-up, and no clear intellectual property. Reviewers ask about funding. There is none. A sponsor with a pill will fund a study that the Food and Drug Administration accepts because approval opens a market. The food trial dies in a committee room without a villain, only a spreadsheet. Publication is the second lock. Top journals prefer large, clean, sponsor-backed trials with tidy p-values and graphics that travel, often authored by teams with disclosures that scroll like film credits. Negative or inconclusive results often languish. If a company runs 5 similar studies and 3 fail while 2 succeed by chance or design, the successes move first. The failures appear years later in smaller journals or not at all. Meta-analysts try to correct for this, but they can only include what exists in public. The signal the average clinician sees is brighter than the underlying truth. Ghostwriting oils the gears. Medical writers craft manuscripts from sponsor data. Academic authors lend names and credibility. Key opinion leaders, respected clinicians with lecture circuits, present the findings at conferences, often with disclosures that scroll quickly and ties to the very sponsors funding the pivotal trials. Advisory boards set guideline thresholds soon after, citing the new trial. By the time a generalist reads the update, the narrative is tight. High-quality evidence supports use in broad populations. The caveats live in appendices and supplementary tables few have time to parse. Then there are safety signals which move at their own pace. A drug launches on the back of short to medium trials. Real-world use reveals patterns, rare heart issues, subtle cognitive effects, dependency risks. Signals wobble in databases, then sharpen. Post-marketing studies lag behind prescriptions by years. Companies argue that benefits outweigh risks. Regulators weigh evidence amid pressure from patients who feel better today. Withdrawals, when they come, arrive after millions of person-years of exposure. The timeline of harm never syncs with the timeline of revenue.